Hi, this is Debbie Samuels, and this is Christina Ortega, and we want to welcome you to the topography of discipleship. And welcome, Christina.
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks for bringing me on this adventure.
Well, we're really excited today. We're up on a mountaintop in an not yet known by you place in Carlsbad, California, overlooking the beauty of the ocean and more. We're here on this mountaintop because we're about ready to go into the third mountaintop of discipleship that we've been talking about. The first one was being with Jesus, and that was time to spend time with him, talk with him, centering and recentering our mind back to him moment by moment throughout the day, and getting to know him. And as we get to know him, we get to know ourselves. The second one is becoming like Jesus. And we took a look at how did he function when he was here on the earth. And there were 4 things that came up. He spent time in silence, solitude, he practiced the Sabbath, and he used the discipline of slowing. He was never in a hurry. And so now we're about ready to jump into the third mountaintop, and that's doing what Jesus did. Christina, I have a verse before you start, and this verse comes from John 14. And it says this, verse 12, "Very truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works that I've been doing, and they will do it with even greater than these, because I'm going to the Father." So here he talks about doing what he did. And so I know that you came up with an acronym. So you want to tell us about the acronym that you have come up with?
Yes. So I came up with an acronym mainly because there's so much that Jesus did. So to narrow it down, I came up with the acronym. We often hear that Jesus was radical in his ways, so the acronym is RAD, R-A-D, and the R is for relational. Jesus was relational. The A is he was available and approachable, and D is he was devoted.
Okay, so with relational, I had you take a look at all the things that Jesus did, as many as you could find. And how was that experience for you?
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, there was a lot that Jesus did. Mm-hmm. So we're breaking it down into, we're not going to give you all of them today, but broke it down into 3 areas. And so relational, we're taking a look at what he did and what it could look like for us today. So what did you discover?
So Jesus was relational in that he came. He left heaven, came down to this broken world with broken people, and came to reveal the heart and character of God. And in this verse, John 6:38, "For I have come down from heaven not to do my will, but of him who sent me." So we also can leave our places of comfort and go and enter into the broken lives of people around us, and also reveal the heart and character of God through our words and actions.
You know, I was thinking about this whole idea of doing what Jesus did. Some people could take that list and make it into, okay, those are the things that I need to do. But really what this is a flowing out of the other mountains, of spending time with him, becoming like him, and then it's a natural thing to progress into doing what Jesus did. It's not a performance list, but it's a list that it's what comes out of us as we know him more and begin to discover what he's doing inside of us. Is that right?
Yeah, and another relational aspect is just dwelling with the people. He just did life with them. He it wasn't a to-do list. It was I'm going to share a meal with you. I'm going to go fishing with you, with the disciples. He went to weddings and participated in the joy of marriage. He also, not just in the joy, he also shared in the grief of his friends who just lost their brother. He forgave. There's so many times in scripture where he forgave people, and the one that sticks out the most to me is that he forgave as he hung on the cross.
Yeah.
He forgave the men who put him there, and service. He, modeled that service by washing the disciples' feet, but not only his friends' feet. He washed Judas's feet.
Yeah.
His enemy, the one who was going to betray him.
Yes. And so I love that word relational, because we're not meant to do this alone. And later in the topography of discipleship, we're going to talk more about how do we do this in community together. And so your next one is A.
He was approachable. So often Jesus was found surrounded by people. So people felt comfortable enough to seek him out. And he was available in the sense where he stopped. He stopped when the woman tugged on the hem of his robe, and he stopped to look at her and heal her. He stopped when he was in the middle of a teaching, interrupted by children. He stopped to say, "Well, bring them. I want to pray for them and bless them." He stopped when the blind man was shouting for mercy, and everybody wanted to keep it moving. And Jesus stopped and went to him and asked him, "What is it that you want me to do for you?"
Jesus was a master of asking questions. And so if you take a look at the Gospels, I think they note that there were 31 questions that Jesus asked. And I believe that one of the great things about asking a question is that he honored the people that he was talking to. He wanted to know what was in them, where their heart was, what did they think. And what Jesus showed us is that the value of listening is probably one of the greatest treasures that we have. There's even a quote that says, when someone feels like they're truly being listened to, it equals the same as truly being loved, even if you agree with them or not. And many times Jesus didn't agree, but he still asked great questions. Yeah, so your next one, we have R, we have A.
Yeah, so D is devoted. And Jesus was devoted in testifying about who he was. We have the I am statements, and Jesus calls us to give our testimony and share the goodness that he's done in our lives. And I know that's not always easy to do, but he gives us a helper. And a verse in John 15:26, he says, "But when the helper comes, whom I will send to you from the Father, the Spirit of truth who proceeds from the Father, he will testify about me." So in sharing the gospel, Jesus not only did it, but he gives us the mandate to do it. And, there's some statistics that say up to 83% of the church in whole doesn't share the gospel. And it's either fear, or they feel it's somebody else's job, or they don't want to mess it up. And so, but what a privilege and honor we have to be able to take the good news to others that really, and what I see here that you said also is Jesus listened to the unheard. Jesus saw those that were not seen, and Jesus healed the forgotten. And that is the privilege that we have in going out and sharing the gospel. Yeah, and he prayed. I mean, I think where Jesus drew his strength is from being alone with the Father. He would get up before the sun, and he would retreat when there were crowds of people around. And he even in the garden, he was troubled, and he brought that troubled heart to the Father. And in the same breath of asking, "Is there another way?" he also surrendered to the will of God.
Wow. So now that you think about all the things that Jesus did, and that part of discipleship is doing what he did, does it make you take a look at Scripture differently now?
Oh yeah, I just abiding, just that word, naturally produces the fruit of doing what he did. I do want to. This one just means so much to me too. Is that he sacrificed, and he calls us to be a living sacrifice, not because more sacrifice needs to be made, because he's the all-sufficient sacrifice once for all, but out of response to the sacrifice that's been done for us, we respond with offering ourselves in service to God and to other people.
Yeah. So Christina, I think that God has been speaking to you deeply about what it means to be a disciple, and this definitely is a journey. It's nothing that you can do overnight. It's a process that we go through, and it first starts with being with him, and then becoming like him, and that means the shaping of the old habits, the ingrained habits that are shed away to take on the habits of Christ through the disciplines, and then saying, remember the old necklace, the bracelet, that what would Jesus do? WWJD.
Yeah.
But beginning to take a look at Scripture and how we can also do what Jesus did here on earth. Did you have a verse for us to finish with?
I do. It's 1 John 2:6. Whoever says he abides in him ought to walk in the same way in which he walked.
That brings it all together in one piece. So thank you so much for being part of this journey with me, and for everybody that's watching. We are excited that you were part of the first month of Topography of Discipleship, and next month it's going to be just as good. So God bless you this week as you learn to be a disciple of Jesus.